What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave Week in Review. This is our Saturday show where we like to go back throughout the week of Newswave, take a look at all the different topics that we've talked about, pick out comments from you guys, and respond. It's a lot of fun because I like to go back through your comments. So today, let's get started. Monday, we talked about a report that was circulating talking about the possibility of Google entering the console market. This speculation came after a report from the Daily Star outlining the possibility of Google's entry after hiring Phil Harrison. Of course, Phil Harrison is known for the part he played in building Sony's PlayStation brand up from day one. Jamie Ryan says Apple already tried to get into the console market with the Apple Pippin. It failed. Now, I did talk about Apple. I talked about different companies that could get into the console market at some point. I named Apple. Mostly I named companies that had a substantial amount of money laying around. Apple has quite a bit. They have, I believe at this point, $230 billion in their war chest. Of course, war chest is generally just liquid cash or assets that they can pretty much cash and pull from immediately. And that lets them do things like R&D and develop an entire console if they want. And that's something that Apple could do now, something they probably should not have done back in the mid-90s with the Pippin. The reason I didn't name the Pippin is because Apple now is significantly different than they were in the mid-90s. And of course, that's because it wasn't just the Apple Pippin. It was technically the Apple Bandai Pippin because Apple provided the technology and built the system. It was Bandai's job to then manufacture, market, and actually sell these things. They also provided the games for it. There were Dragon Ball games on the Pippin. However, it didn't work out well, and while I do think it was failed from the start, it was definitely a collaborative effort between Bandai and Apple. I would have much rather seen Apple, now take a shot at it than then. I mean, guys, this is a company that, a year or two after the Pippin failed, they then had to take a big buyout, or not really a buyout, but a big investment from Microsoft of $150 million in stock, non-controlling shares, just to stay afloat. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back. It's on YouTube. You can watch people in the audience tearing up that Apple's getting bought by Microsoft, which technically Microsoft had to do it because Apple was probably going to, seriously, they probably would collapse and go out of business. There was nothing they could do at that point, and that's why they had to accept this. This is back in Macworld, and Bill Gates shows up on the big projection screen, and that's because they were buying a good chunk of Apple to keep them around. The reason they had to do that is because they would then probably be seen as a monopoly, and, well, when that happens, the government gets involved. Microsoft didn't want that, and then they did eventually sell the shares back later on. I think it was 2003, and they didn't really get as much money as they could have if they kept it until now, when they have the iPhone and the iPad, and it's just a substantial amount of money. That's the reason I thought Apple would have been a good company to get in, just because they have the money, and of course they're much different now than they were then. I really don't even count the Pippin as what Apple is now, to be honest. As for Google, they also have a substantial amount of money, but we haven't heard anything else since then, so it is still speculation. Although any other console showing up, while people I saw in the comments were not excited about a fourth console, if you will, showing up, because then that means they have to buy another console. Listen, it's more competition, and it would be better. Now, if there actually were 8 consoles out there, that might get a little saturated at that point, but I think if there is another one, so a fourth one, I don't think it would be enough to saturate the market. I think it would only serve to help the market. So I would like to see Google or any other company get in, but at this point, we still don't know what Phil Harrison is really doing there, so we'll have to wait and see if anything actually happens. They kept naming GDC. I don't know about that. I think this would just be something they just kind of put out there as, hey, look, here's our new console. I mean, they technically control a good chunk of the internet, Google does, so they can, obviously, they control Google, and they can control if you see their Google console when you go to google.com. Tuesday went over a report from Polygon that pointed out reliable rumors heard from close to Microsoft about a massive acquisition. Some of the companies listed that Microsoft could be eyeing up included EA and even Valve. Mysterious Cam says, if they buy Valve, a lot of people will be angry. I'm iffy about EA. Concentration of media is never good, and in the end, that give less choice to the consumer. I did see a lot of people not happy about the possibility of Microsoft buying Valve. I think the reason people aren't happy is because at this point, Steam is free, right? You go on there, you buy stuff, and that's it. I think people are concerned that if Microsoft starts owning the majority of the market for actually buying stuff digitally, they'll do some funny business with it, right? Maybe they will try to incorporate Xbox Live onto the PC, and really all that would do is drive competition for people to build a free marketplace. Unfortunately, at this point, Valve and Steam is so renowned, everyone uses it, that it would take a while, and there would probably be people who would actually pay a subscription fee of Xbox Live through Steam just to use it. Now, they would also have to add a lot of features. Game Pass, for one, would have to become part of it, but I could see that being something that Microsoft would do. They would, of course, replace their Windows Store with Steam. That would just go away or just be renamed as Steam, and then that would just be a part of every Windows computer. So their overall consumer count, or their daily users, would go up, since then every copy of Windows 10 would have Steam just pre-installed. So more people would probably honestly click it down in a little taskbar, but it may not be good. Now, EA would be interesting, because I don't think that would actually hurt the market as much as people think it would, mostly because I think Microsoft would keep everything, well, all the games going to all different systems. I don't think they would just keep it on their platform, like how they did with Minecraft, right? They bought it for a lot of money, they kept it everywhere because it was already on all systems. All these EA games, like hockey and basketball and all their other games, football, those are all FIFA, those are all games that are on all systems. I don't think Microsoft take that away. I think they see a lot of money in those microtransactions with, of course, FIFA's Ultimate Team and everything. With those microtransactions, which are massive, they would want as many people to play that game as possible. That's why FIFA would probably be one of the first games, I'm telling you guys, that would be added to Game Pass, and try to give it away essentially for a very small fee, so then you buy in with microtransactions. I think Microsoft right now, even without buying EA, they're playing the long game with Game Pass. Wednesday, we got word that an emulator appears to be loaded on the Chinese Nvidia Shield TV. This came after a member of the Zelda speedrunning community imported a Shield TV from China and looked through the files for Zelda Twilight Princess. What they found was an emulator that appears to do a flawless job of running Gamecube and Wii games on a Tegra processor. The Game Creator 13 says, "While I agree they need to add options for analog triggers for Gamecube emulation, I also ask how critically are the analog triggers even used. They could just straight up not give the option, and few games would take any kind of major hit from it, and also still be 99% as playable as on normal hardware anyway. Gamecube emulation would work regardless, and before you say it, just because Sunshine used it doesn't mean it was used in a critical, better at it kind of way. Sunshine is still 99% as playable as it is on Gamecube." So I do think Nintendo may be able to figure something out here to go around analog triggers. However, something like Mario Sunshine did use it well, right? It would kind of control how much water was actually shooting out of FLUDD. That was a great example. Driving games did take advantage of it as you would slowly pull down the triggers. Your car would accelerate faster or slower, and I'm sure there were several other times where they were used that I'm not even thinking about. I'm sure you guys could name quite a few GameCube games that did use those analog triggers, as we would think, because, well, you would actually click them at one point when you push them all the way down. It was a feature that Nintendo actually would advertise at times, and people would talk about all over the internet because it was really cool. But would they be able to get around it without offering Joy-Cons and analog triggers? Probably. There's probably something they could do, whether you hold a button and you press another or something. I'm trying to think of different ways that they could make that work, but I think it would be harder to do than just give us analog triggers. Like I was saying on Twitter, how cool would it be if they announced GameCube emulation, and then for those who are mostly docked a lot, they revive the Wavebird, right? Make it Bluetooth and bring it out. And then we have this really cool looking like replica of the Wavebird made obviously officially from Nintendo, kind of like how they brought back the GameCube controller for Smash Bros. On the newer systems. They do that with the Wavebird, make it so it can just kind of sync up to the Switch at this point, and then we have analog triggers, and of course you could probably use it for Smash Bros and everything. I would absolutely love that, and I would hope that'd be something they could do. The real problem gets into with the handheld mode. Of course, they could also do something where they release Joy-Con controllers that are with its grip shaped like the Wavebird. That would be neat as well, but I do think we need Joy-Cons, analog triggers, and of course we need, in this case, something with, I guess, some kind of controller outside of that, since the Pro Controller also has digital triggers. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that down in the comments. I think there are some cool ways they could get around it, but right now, if they are going GameCube, that seems to be the biggest roadblock right now, are those analog triggers. On Thursday, we went over a bunch of announcements from Nintendo that popped up during their investors briefing. Some of these announcements include their paid online service targeting a September launch, and Mario Kart making its way to mobile phones sometime before March 2019. Dylan Bolin1 says, "This is ridiculous. We have to wait a whole year and 6 months for basic online functionality. Get your priorities straight, Nintendo." So technically the online does work with Nintendo, right? You can play online, you can pretty much all your games work online right now. I think what a lot of people want are things like cloud saves, right? We've seen people lose all of their save games. I think pretty much everyone wants a way to get saves off of their Switch right now, because it is a little terrifying to have some of the long games, like Zelda is so massive, you put hundreds of hours into it, and then something happens to your Switch, whether it just stops turning on one day, or it gets lost or something, and then you just don't have your save game. You got to start all over again. Most people, believe it or not, would probably not even bother. They would probably just move on from it. But it is weird that we don't have any way to back up saves. I think that's clear. Somebody at the investors briefing, the first thing they said was, we need cloud saves. And then they went on to their question. That was it. So that's clear. The online functionality, the other thing I could think of that we really need is some kind of, I guess, integrated party and lobby system, and then voice chat. Now, a lot of people don't care about voice chat, but it is important. You know, it's something that's used a lot. I played Sea of Thieves. If there was no voice chat in that, I don't know what I would have done. If I had to use a cell phone, I don't know what I would have done. It would not have been fun. That game desperately needs it. So if those kind of co-op experiences are also going to come to the Switch, not necessarily Sea of Thieves, but something else, I think voice chat should also be there. Even if you don't use it, it should be there if you're paying $20 a year, right? I mean, that should be the case, I think. I mean, the PS2 had system-level voice chat, and it was technically free online. So the PS3, I guess, to a degree, had as well. So I understand what you're saying here, right? I should have it now. But the other thing is, think about this. Nintendo's actually charging for online. That seems like a weird suggestion based on their online history when it came to online gaming, because they've always been kind of behind the curve on that. So do you really want them to start really charging you $20 now for what they're offering currently? Or do you want them to wait until it's actually ready, something they obviously have not had as a ready online system, and then charge you $20? You know what, at this point, the online games work. I have other options for games like Sea of Thieves, obviously. I'll be playing on Xbox and everything. I can wait until September, but they need to show up with a good online system. They cannot show up with something that is half-baked, essentially, and then asks for $20 a year, because people are going to be pretty annoyed, and at that point, you're giving money over for something like their online experience, and yeah, you're allowed to complain then, because you're giving up money for something that may seem archaic if they don't step their game up. Finally, on Friday, we went over Red Dead Redemption 2 getting a solid release date of October 28th. We also talked about how the Nintendo Labo can be programmed to do more with the parts that you build by simply using a program that has you connect blocks and remapping buttons. The Optimist says, "This is amazing. Now I am definitely going to buy Labo. My brother and I, both studying a form of mechanical engineering, we are planning on making a 3D printer and use that to create our own Labo products and program those with the Toy-Con Garage feature. I hope you can also program the IR sensor as an input." They're mostly kind of talking about vibrations in that one, like where you hit a button and like the left one will vibrate, the left Joy-Con. But in this case, yeah, if they let you do things with the IR function, because it does interact with reflective tape in some way, you could get really detailed here, and that's something I would love to see, because think about it this way: if you could program the different Joy-Cons, do what you want, and then maybe you take a picture of, like a screenshot even, of your Switch, and then you put it online, you say, hey, this is how I made the IR and the Joy-Con do this together, and you post a picture, and people just kind of, look at the screen and kind of make that on their own screen, so it's programmed that way. That'd be really neat. I think I would also like to see them, going forward, maybe allow you to post your custom programs online and people can download them. That would be really neat. Who knows what people are going to come up with? I mean, you're talking about going into mechanical engineering and 3D printing and stuff. This seems like the Labo, while it's targeted towards kids, has this mode that I think people who are like adults who are into programming stuff might look at and be like, that's kind of cool. I should probably get this just to see how it works. Now, it's also come down to how robust it can be. Like, you're asking if the IR sensor is controllable. I don't know. As far as I know right now, you can make stuff vibrate with different buttons. But hey, why not? Like, let people, this is all about creativity and building. Let people go to town with this thing. It's not like they're going to hack the Switch with their Labo programming. I don't think that's possible. So let people go crazy with it and see what they can come up with, and then let people post it online, kind of like Mario Maker, for example, and then you can run other people's programs on your Labo. That would be really neat. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave Week in Review today. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button, guys, if you enjoyed this video. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about all the stuff we talked about, whether it is Labo programming. Maybe all of a sudden it piqued your curiosity because you can now program on this thing, something we didn't hear about until recently with the Toy-Con Garage. That seems really cool. And also let me know what you think about the Google console, Microsoft possibly buying places like EA or Valve, Gamecube and Wii emulators on the Nvidia Shield. A lot of stuff to talk about from this week, guys. Definitely leave some comments. And then, of course, I'll see you later on tonight for Spawncast. Should be a good time. That's 9 p.m. Eastern time. I'll see you guys then.